The interrogation room was dark and gloomy. The only light in the room came from a dim yellow lamp, hanging right above Minho's head. He sat with his head lowered, his empty gaze fixed on the thick file on the table, a heavy stack of papers laden with secrets, guilt, and horrific details. Across the table, two investigators watched his every subtle expression, trying to decipher what lay hidden behind his calm exterior. On the file, in bold red letters, stood the title, Seoul Workplace Harassment Case. A wave of public opinion surged through every newspaper headline. The story sprawled across journalists' desks, in every cafe, on buses, and along the streets of Seoul. People buzzed with discussions about this shocking case. The name Kim Jae-wook, the CEO of a famous tech company, appeared alongside sensational keywords: sexual harassment, bloody revenge, and genital mutilation. This incident exploded like a bomb in Korean society, igniting outrage, horror, and a fair amount of curiosity about the motives behind such a terrifying act of revenge. How could a mild-mannered office worker, a talented man, become entangled in this whirlwind of violence? One of the investigators gently broke the stifling silence. "Minho, tell us everything, from start to finish." The question pulled him out of his chaotic thoughts. Minho looked up slightly. His eyes still carried a deep sorrow, heavy with painful memories. His gaze held no anger, no confusion, only a dull sadness, as if he had left a part of himself behind on that fateful night. Taking a deep breath, Minho began to recount, each word strung together like fragmented memories, piecing them into a story. "I once believed I had a chance to contribute, to be acknowledged, to succeed. But it was all just a joke," he said, his voice lowering, and a flicker of resentment crossed his eyes at the mention of Kim Jae-wook's name. He paused, his hand trembling slightly as he touched the cold edge of the table, as if the horrifying sensation still lingered at his fingertips. Outside the interrogation room, reporters waited with cameras and microphones raised, ready to capture a glimpse of the man believed to be the culprit in this chilling story. Each event, each secret, and the truth were about to unfold in Minho's sorrowful recounting, drawing the reader into a dark sequence of tragedies no one could have anticipated. Minho was an outstanding employee at a leading tech company in Seoul. He had spent years working tirelessly, completing numerous important projects and bringing success to the company. However, despite his contributions, he still hadn't received a promotion. Every day, Minho continued to work in a mid-level position, with no opportunity for advancement, while his colleagues around him were being promoted. One day, Minho was assigned a significant task, presenting a major project to the board. This was the opportunity he had long awaited, hoping it would turn the tide in his favor. During the presentation, he spoke clearly, confidently, and addressed every question from the board. Everyone was visibly impressed by his performance, and the CEO, Kim Jae-wook, paid particular attention to Minho. Right after the presentation, CEO Kim Jae-wook called Minho into his private office. At that moment, the light in the room dimmed, and the atmosphere grew tense. Director Kim invited Minho to sit down and began a conversation. He praised Minho's successful presentation and remarked that he had truly demonstrated his full potential. Then CEO Kim made an unexpected offer. "If you want to advance further in this company, I can help you. But sometimes career advancement doesn't come from work alone." This proposal left Minho feeling perplexed. Kim continued, "If you're willing to develop a special relationship with me, I'll help you achieve what you want in the company." At this moment, Minho realized this wasn't an ordinary career offer. CEO Kim's words gradually revealed a darker side. He was asking Minho to engage in a sexual relationship in exchange for career advancement. Minho felt stunned and shocked by the proposal. Although Kim tried to appear polite and tactful, Minho knew this wasn't simply a proposal about work or career. CEO Kim's words were laden with insinuation and clearly represented a tempting deal that he couldn't refuse if he wanted to keep his chances for promotion. The choice between maintaining his dignity or accepting a dark relationship left Minho feeling cornered in a troubling dilemma. At first, Minho couldn't believe what CEO Kim Jae-wook was asking. He flatly refused, thinking it was an unthinkable joke. in a professional environment. However, the CEO wasn't willing to let it go. Kim Jae-wook resolutely threatened that if Minho didn't comply with his demands, his career would be ruined. All the efforts and achievements Minho had gained over the years would become meaningless, and he would be driven out of the company disgracefully. Under this pressure, Minho felt he had no other choice. Despite his inner turmoil, he gradually agreed to engage in secret meetings with the CEO. These meetings, which initially involved vague requests, gradually turned into humiliating encounters, making Minho feel trapped in an inescapable situation. He couldn't share this with anyone, as revealing it would cause everything to crumble. Day by day, Minho had to serve CEO Kim Jae-wook sexually at his demand. The encounters became more severe, involving not just Kim but also men and women Kim had hired. Minho was forced to engage with them sexually in the CEO's office under his supervision. These acts were not only coercive but also a complete rejection of his values and dignity. Each time, Minho felt as if he was being pushed deeper into a dark abyss, unable to escape or resist this injustice and humiliation. The relationship between Minho and CEO Kim Jae-wook gradually became a dark secret, a chain of actions that couldn't be revealed or exposed. This darkness began to erode Minho's spirit. Though he continued his work and tried to remain calm, everything in his life seemed to fade away. Each passing day, Minho felt himself losing parts of his humanity and hope. He couldn't leave the company, couldn't break free from Kim's control, but he was becoming increasingly desperate. Minho's patience and endurance slowly weakened, and he began to feel alienated, not just in his job but within his very existence. All he longed for was freedom, but freedom seemed so distant, something unreachable. The promise of a promotion shattered, Minho began to realize a bitter truth he had long avoided facing. Although he had endured all of CEO Kim Jae-wook's demands, the secret meetings, the humiliating acts, after a long time, the one thing he had been waiting for, a promotion promised by Kim, never came to fruition. All the hopes he had clung to now completely collapsed as Kim Jae-wook gradually ignored him, even acting indifferent, as if no agreement had ever existed between them. Minho realized he had been exploited. Not only was the promise of promotion unfulfilled, but Kim also began to threaten him with sensitive photos he had taken during their encounters. These photos not only threatened Minho's reputation but also jeopardized his career in life. Kim continually asserted that if Minho didn't continue to comply with his demands, these images would be released, and Minho's career would end immediately. Minho felt he had no choice but to continue living in pain and humiliation, but part of him couldn't overlook the betrayal. Driven to the edge, Minho began to contemplate a plan for revenge. He could no longer endure the humiliation and would not allow Kim Jae-wook to continue manipulating his life. Determined to overthrow the man who had abused and threatened him, Minho decided to record their confrontation. He wanted evidence, a clear truth that he could use against Kim to make him pay. During the confrontation, Kim confessed that Minho was merely a pawn in his hands, that every achievement Minho had in the company was due to Kim's manipulation and their illicit relationship. That statement hit Minho like a shock. He had indeed become a pawn, a tool in Kim Jae-wook's hands, serving his purposes without ever realizing it. Angry and powerless, Minho couldn't stop thinking about what Kim had done to him. The pent-up rage over the past time had become unbearable. A plan for revenge took shape in his mind. Minho decided he could no longer accept this situation. He would take action. His life could not remain a mere pawn in Kim's hands. One afternoon, when CEO Kim summoned Minho to his private office to serve him, Minho knew that this was his only chance to execute his plan. He had prepared a knife, concealed on his person as his sole means of reclaiming control over his life. As Kim indulged in the actions he had demanded, Minho suddenly acted. In a moment no one could have anticipated, he drew the knife and attacked Kim Jae-wook's genitals, severing them completely. The powerful attack caused Kim to scream in agony, his cries echoing throughout the room, making the silence afterward even more terrifying. Minho didn't have time to think further. He only felt a strange sense of relief in having carried out his revenge. Blood poured rapidly from Kim's wound, leaving him collapsed and unable to resist. Kim's scream had caught the attention of those outside, and within minutes, Kim's secretary burst into the room, witnessing the horrifying scene. Minho didn't run away, nor did he attempt to hide his actions. He stood still, watching Kim in his utter agony, feeling no sympathy or regret. Kim had ruined his life, exploited him all this time, and now Minho felt he had reclaimed a portion of his power and freedom. However, things didn't end as he had hoped. The incident quickly became a shocking case within the company, and news of the attack spread everywhere. People couldn't believe what had happened, especially as Minho was taken into custody by the police. The company fell into chaos, employees buzzed with rumors about the event, and Kim Jae-wook's reputation was irreparably destroyed. Yet, for Minho, nothing mattered anymore. He had taken his revenge, and although the price was a life behind bars, he was no longer a pawn in Kim's game. After Minho's attack on Kim Jae-wook, the horrific scene in the director's office left everyone in panic. Kim was severely injured, bleeding uncontrollably. Company staff immediately called for an ambulance, rushing him to the nearest hospital. Doctors quickly performed emergency surgery to save his life, but the injuries were too severe. Kim's genitals were severed, causing extensive damage to surrounding tissue. Throughout his treatment, Kim received intensive care, but his condition remained unstable. The injury affected not only his body but also forced him to confront overwhelming humiliation. Upon regaining consciousness and understanding the situation, Kim realized that his career and reputation were irreversibly destroyed. Although the doctors did their best to help him recover, what he had done left him unable to escape the consequences. He faced not only physical pain but also the reality of answering to the law. The investigation into this shocking case quickly became the focus of public and police attention. Right after Minho's arrest, the authorities launched an investigation with the participation of experienced investigators. The interrogation room became the place where dark secrets slowly surfaced as undeniable evidence began to emerge. One of the first things investigators noticed was the recording that Minho had secretly made before taking action. In the recording, CEO Kim Jae-wook admitted to everything Minho had endured, from being exploited to being threatened that his career would be destroyed if he didn't comply with Kim's demands. This irrefutable evidence marked a crucial turning point in the investigation. Detective Park, who led the case, couldn't hide his surprise upon hearing Kim Jae-wook's words. Kim was not only a ruthless director but also a manipulator who used his power to threaten and control his subordinates. Notably, during the confrontation, Kim showed no remorse for his actions. He even brazenly confessed that he saw Minho as nothing more than a pawn, a tool for his own personal gain. Kim made it clear that holding back Minho's promotion was part of his plan to keep Minho close and under his control. Along with the recording, a series of sensitive documents and photographs that Kim had taken during their encounters were also discovered. These photos not only captured the humiliating moments that Minho had to endure, but also served as clear evidence that Kim had used them to blackmail him. This evidence was enough to charge Kim Jae-wook with abuse of power, sexual harassment, and threats. While Kim Jae-wook attempted to justify himself and deny all responsibility, the investigation team continued gathering additional evidence from other employees in the company. They discovered that not only Minho but also several other employees had suffered similar oppression and manipulation. Some of them decided to come forward as witnesses, providing vital information about Kim's actions over the years. The more evidence that was uncovered, the clearer the dark truth within the company became. Finally, after weeks of investigation, the truth was laid bare. The investigators presented irrefutable evidence of sexual abuse, manipulation, coercion, and harassment that Kim Jae-wook had inflicted upon numerous employees. For Minho, though he had sought revenge in his own way, he now found himself part of a larger struggle, a fight against oppression and abuse of power in the workplace. With everything exposed, the company where Kim Jae-wook served as CEO plunged into chaos. The company's board was forced to issue an official statement about the incident and conduct an internal investigation to examine the responsibility of those involved. The authorities began taking further legal action, turning the case into an intense legal battle as justice sought to punish those who abused power and forced others to endure disgraceful acts. On the day of the trial, the full truth about Kim Jae-wook was brought to light. The prosecutor presented irrefutable evidence of Kim's prolonged sexual harassment and abuse of power. The documents, sensitive photos, and especially Minho's recording left Kim unable to justify his actions. Testimonies from other employees who had endured similar oppression from Kim were also presented. The court quickly determined that Kim had abused his position to coerce and sexually harass employees, causing harm not only physically, but also psychologically to the victims. When the court delivered the verdict, Kim Jae-wook was found guilty of sexual abuse and abuse of power. He was sentenced to prison and faced a substantial compensation payment to Minho, who had endured a long period of suffering. The verdict was seen as a victory for those who had been harassed and manipulated in the workplace, and it served as a warning to those who exploit their power to control others. The case not only shook the corporate world but also sparked a powerful wave of public opinion in South Korean society. The public condemned Kim Jae-wook as a power abuser and criticized the work environment in companies that failed to protect employees' rights. Many saw this as one of the most significant cases revealing the truth about workplace sexual harassment. The government and social organizations called for strong reforms, urging companies to implement strict policies to protect employee rights. Under public pressure, the company where Kim Jae-wook had worked was forced to commit to improving the work environment and implementing measures to protect employees from abuse. Many other companies also began to reevaluate their systems, introducing employee rights training programs and stricter policies on sexual harassment prevention. This investigation spurred a major change in South Korea's corporate environment, as employees became more aware of their rights and were no longer silent in the face of abuse from superiors. As the trial concluded and the sentence for Kim Jae-wook was announced, the public couldn't help but react. The image of a once powerful CEO, now sentenced by the court for sexual harassment and abuse of power, became a sobering lesson for many in society. Kim, with years of influence and success, now faced societal rejection, and the reputation he had painstakingly built over the years was utterly destroyed. For Minho, after all the suffering he endured, the legal acknowledgement brought a small measure of comfort, although it could never erase the scars he bore. Kim Jae-wook's conviction couldn't eliminate Minho's haunting memories, but at least he felt that justice had been served. Kim would pay for his cruel actions, and society could now see his true face. Yet, justice could not entirely soothe the pain Minho carried within. He had to continue his life, albeit in a workplace environment that had somewhat transformed. After the shocking events, the company was forced to amend its policies to ensure employee safety and rights, which gave him a sense of protection. Minho couldn't return to life as it was before. However, he knew he needed to rebuild, to find a way to recover from the emotional and physical wounds. He was no longer a victim in this story, but a survivor, a victor, though it was a victory that didn't bring complete relief. Justice had been done, and with every step forward, Minho hoped he could find inner peace, though it wouldn't be easy. This story stands as a powerful condemnation of sexual harassment in the workplace, especially the abuse of power by those in high positions. Through Minho's journey, it clearly reflects the devastating impact that sexual harassment can have on victims. Minho's suffering wasn't only in enduring humiliating acts, but also in the profound psychological harm, as he felt trapped in a cycle of abuse in an environment where power resided solely in the hands of the strong. After serving his prison sentence, Kim Jae-wook became a completely different person. Not only was he rejected by society, but even his own family no longer wanted to see him. He was shunned by everyone, from old friends to those in the industry. All had turned their backs on him. Witnessing this rejection, Kim felt an overwhelming emptiness. He lived in poverty with no friends, no family, confined to a small, filthy room where he had to confront painful memories. He couldn't forget the lifelong scar he bore, a damaged genital area, a punishment he couldn't repair. It wasn't only a physical wound, but also a profound mental humiliation. In long, dark nights, Kim couldn't find sleep. The darkness seemed to cut deep into his mind, bringing forth the excruciating pain of what he had done. Each day he lived with a truth: he himself had created the abusive actions that had destroyed Minho's life and left an indelible wound. He wondered if he could ever regain everything he'd lost, but the answer was a cold silence. In prison, Kim was tormented by memories of his past. He regretted each time he used his power to manipulate and hurt innocent people. Yet, his cruelty in the past denied him any chance for forgiveness. Every time he thought of his actions, a deep shame washed over him, but he couldn't change what had happened. His days in prison became a hopeless succession of moments, with no redemption for a man like him. He had lost everything, now left with only utter solitude, a punishment silent yet no less brutal. This story emphasizes that abuse of power is not merely an individual act, but an issue with far-reaching effects on workplace culture and society as a whole. Minho, though talented and dedicated, was trapped in a system where those with authority had no regard for the dignity of others. But the story also conveys a message of hope about the power of justice and the resilience of victims. Although the past cannot be changed, the implementation of justice, in any form and to any degree, is a crucial step in preventing the continuation of such behavior. Through decisive actions like Minho's choice to fight back and record the truth, the story shows that victims should never feel powerless, and that there is always an opportunity to speak out against injustice. The story also conveys a message that society and organizations need to enact changes to protect the rights of each individual, creating a healthy and safe workplace free from abuse and harassment. These changes shouldn't stop at handling incidents that have already occurred, but should also aim to build a fairer system where people can work and grow without fear of mental or physical harm.